Imogen, if you can drag your brain away from the 6th series of Offspring, which I believe is shooting without you today.
Yes. It is.
Could you talk to us about how both Puberty Blues and The Beautiful Lie came about, and the biggest challenges to you getting those projects out there on the screen?
They both happened quite differently. Puberty Blues was very much, we were looking for a book, and that was because it seemed as though there was an opportunity with a broadcaster at that time to do a book. And so John and I were sort of tossing ideas around, and neither of us were particularly interested. Well, actually, I'm speaking for myself. I wasn't particularly interested in doing anything kind of historical. So we started sort of throwing around unlikely books, and somehow Puberty Blues came up. And I guess Puberty Blues is one of those books that I was just the right age at the time that it came out to be too young to read it, and so therefore desperate to read it. So it sort of played a bit of a part in, I guess, you know, I guess in sort of giving me like the wrong idea about life and being a teenager and, you know, sex and everything. So it sort of probably negatively informed me for a long time. So it sort of sat quite large in my brain, I guess, and we just started talking about that. Had conversations with both Kathy and Gabrielle about potentially adapting it. You know, there were quite a few conversations about that, and that relationship, you know, they both have very, very different ideas about or memories of that project and relationships with the material, but they both agreed. And they were incredibly generous in the way that they allowed us to deal with the material. They didn't really want approvals. They wanted to know what we were doing. You know, we sold that fairly easily to 10. And that was a very different process to The Beautiful Lie. The Beautiful Lie, obviously, it's Anna Karenina's, you know, a book that sits on a lot of favourite book lists. And that felt like such a responsibility to deal with that material. And there was a lot of conversation at the time about whether we would actually even mention it. There were times where we were going to sort of release The Beautiful Lie from Anna Karenina entirely. And I think that there are sort of, in some ways, you know, I'm going back to my mother. I think for my mother, the fact that we tied that material to Anna Karenina was a real negative for her, you know, because she just sat there watching it going, this isn't Anna Karenina, and just getting angry, and really angry with me that I'd said it was. So I think that there were some negatives in attaching it to that, but then it was so obvious that the central story was the story of Anna. Did I answer the question? I forgot what it was. Yeah, you did. The biggest challenges. I mean, the book is such a slight book in a way, and Puberty Blues.
Yeah, Puberty Blues.
Oh, yeah, say. It's controversial.
No, Puberty Blues.
Yeah.
So you must have had to invent a lot of the material.
Yeah.
So what was it that you got from the book, and particularly given it's set in another period?
No, we set it in the 70s.
Oh, right.
We set it sort of around the time. I mean, we're a little non-specific about the year because we wanted to be a little bit flexible with music, frankly. But no, it was set. I
thought it was set 10 years later for some reason.
No.
Okay.
No, it was at the time. So most of the invention was about the parents. You know, it was about sort of inventing the parents because, you know, we always had their point of view, we always had the girls' point of view, but we really wanted to kind of involve a parental point of view. And you talk about that period of time, talk about the surf culture. You know, you're always talking about sort of other things. You're always talking sort of, you know, trying to tease out the themes, talk about Australia, find, you know, the sort of the contemporary parallels. But I mean, the biggest pragmatic thing was inventing parents. It was sort of fleshing out families, really.
Yeah. You're someone that needs to create a lot of content, and your banner company, Endemol Shine, is a massive company worldwide, so there must be pressure on you to deliver. How do you see adaptation in the big scheme of things? Like, is it something that you know delivers to a producer in a way that originals don't, or how do you think about that?
Look, I think that it's if we're speaking just really pragmatically, I think that it's easier if you go to a broadcaster with a book, with a known book, then there's an immediate connection to material. It's much harder to convince a broadcaster that something that sort of exists in your brain is worth spending millions on. So there's sort of an immediate engagement, I suppose. So from that point of view, it's kind of a good place to start. But then on the other hand, I think that books can give you false comfort as material. I think that it's really difficult to find books that are good for adaptation, because I think that that often books are very interior. And it's interesting because I was thinking about this. I was thinking sort of like, are there any books that I'd want to adapt at the moment, or what does sort of pique your interest? I mean, partly there are two things here. Partly, I'm me, and I work for a big company, but I'm like me. I don't have like 15 people reading for me. It's like me sitting there reading. So there's only so much material that you can actually get through and access. But the things that have piqued my interest lately have been things like, reading Boomerang, Michael Lewis's book about the European economic crisis. I was sort of reading that, and there was this really interesting story that had nothing to do with economics, but it was talking about smelting aluminium in Iceland. And it was this little sort of paragraph about how in order to develop land in Iceland, you have to disprove the existence of elves. And so suddenly you go, what, like that's a story, like that's a film. And not that I'm ever going to make it, but so it's you're not necessarily looking for a big chunky book. Looking for something that sparks an idea, or something that can be kind of moulded into television. And with television, obviously, you're telling 6 hours, 8 hours, 30 hours, depending. So you're looking for something that sort of generates story. So you're looking for character, or you're looking for situation, or you're just looking for something to spark it off.